This is impossible! Absolutely impossible!
I stared intently at the 3 pregnancy tests in my wife's hands, their positive results sending shockwaves through my entire being. What was to come next would undoubtedly set our lives on an entirely new and unpredictable course. Hey everyone, welcome to Worldly Whispers. Let's get started. My wife and I have been married for 3 years, and we've been in a relationship for 6. Throughout these long years, she has always been one of the most remarkable people in my life. We've never had any major arguments. Our love languages are in sync, and our lives are filled with energy. That's why our relationship has remained so strong and stable. However, this sudden situation has now plunged me into a state of utter confusion and distress. Over the past few years, both of our careers have been thriving. She has been doing extremely well in the marketing field, while I, as an independent IT consultant, enjoy the flexibility of arranging my own working hours. Last year, we joyously decided to have a child. We planned that she would continue to work full-time, and I would cut back to part-time to welcome the new life. We were filled with anticipation for this upcoming little one, and the excitement we felt at that time is still vivid in my memory. Nevertheless, fate played a cruel joke on us. In December of last year, I was diagnosed with azoospermia. The blocked ducts meant that I couldn't produce any sperm during ejaculation. Fortunately, the doctor said that surgery could cure this condition, so in July of this year, we finally scheduled the operation. During this period, my wife and I still had an active sex life, but I was well aware that I couldn't get her pregnant before the surgery. Now, she missed her period this week. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but when she showed me those 3 pregnancy tests, it felt as if the whole world had crumbled in an instant. It was as if the baby was trapped in a bottle, and there was no way for it to enter this world until the blockage was cleared by the surgery. Yet, the fact was right before my eyes, and the positive results of the pregnancy tests were glaringly obvious. At first, I was completely stunned because, from a medical perspective, this was simply unimaginable. My wife has always been loyal to me and has never given me any reason to doubt her. I'm not the jealous type either, but at this moment, I felt as if I was trapped in an inescapable quagmire. The doctor had clearly stated that I couldn't get my wife pregnant before the surgery. But how could this situation be explained now? I really couldn't believe that, with our deep affection and close physical bond, she would easily ruin the future we had been longing for because of a short-term affair. After my wife learned of her pregnancy, she was overjoyed. Her face was radiant with happiness, showing no sign of guilt whatsoever, nor any concern about the possibility of having been unfaithful. When she first discovered the pregnancy, I was too shocked to voice my concerns, and she was completely immersed in this great joy. Now that she has gone to work, I'm left alone at home, my heart filled with pain and suspicion. I keep asking myself, if she really had an affair, what should I do? Looking back on some small incidents in the past, those details that seemed insignificant before now feel like sharp needles piercing my heart. Her job often requires her to take clients out for dinner, and it's common for her to come back late at night. In the past few months, she has indeed been very busy, but this is not unusual for her job. She usually uses the same perfume, but one night when she returned, she smelled completely different. Another time, I saw a text message on her phone's lock screen with just a winking face. At that time, I thought it was from one of her female friends, so I didn't give a second thought. Damn it. I really don't know what to do now. I made an appointment with a doctor for Monday to see if there's any chance that this child is mine. If it really is mine, and I accuse her of having an affair out of unfounded suspicion, then I would be the biggest jerk in the world. But she'll be home in a few hours, and I have no idea how to face her. Those little things that might suggest her infidelity keep swirling in my mind, and I didn't notice them at all before. Should I wait until I see the doctor on Monday and then talk to her? Or should I tell her about these insecurities in my heart while she's happily celebrating her pregnancy? I'm really worried that I won't be able to hide the turmoil in my heart right now. But what happened next would completely transform our lives. Welcome to this story full of challenges and trials. She finally came home, and as soon as she walked through the door, I felt a strange sense of unease wash over me. Her smile seemed a bit too bright, and I couldn't help but notice that she was moving around the house with an almost nervous energy. I tried to act normal, but my mind was racing with all the doubts and questions that had been plaguing me since I saw those positive pregnancy tests. We sat down on the couch, and she immediately started chatting about her day at work, how her meeting with a major client went well, and how excited she was about the new marketing campaign they were launching. I nodded along, trying to look interested, but my thoughts were elsewhere. I kept thinking about how I could bring up the elephant in the room without sounding accusatory. Suddenly, she stopped talking and looked at me with a concerned expression. "Honey, are you okay? You seem a bit off today," she said, reaching out to touch my hand. Her touch sent a jolt through me, and I had to fight the urge to pull my hand away. I took a deep breath and decided to take the plunge. I need to talk to you about something," I stammered, my voice sounding weak and uncertain even to my own ears. She looked at me intently, her eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of worry. I told her about my appointment with the doctor on Monday, how I was trying to understand if there was any remote possibility that this pregnancy could be mine despite the diagnosis of azoospermia. As I spoke, I watched her face carefully, looking for any signs of guilt or discomfort. But she just listened attentively, nodding occasionally, and her expression remained calm and composed. When I finished speaking, she took my hand in both of hers and gave it a gentle squeeze. "I understand why you're so worried, love. But, sometimes medical things can be unpredictable. There could be some rare chance that we just don't know about yet. And I want you to know that I've always been faithful to you. You're the love of my life, and I would never do anything to jeopardize our relationship," she said, her voice soft and sincere. I wanted to believe her. I really did. Her words sounded so reassuring, and her eyes seemed to hold nothing but love and concern for me. But deep down, I still couldn't shake off that nagging feeling of doubt. I thought about the time she came home late, the different smell on her one night, and that mysterious text message. I decided to bring up those small things, not in an accusing way, but more as a way to express my growing insecurities. "Remember that night when you came home and you smelled different? And that text message I saw on your phone with just a winking face? I know it might seem silly, but with everything that's going on, it's just making me more and more anxious," I said, my voice trailing off at the end. She looked a bit surprised at first, and then she let out a small laugh. "Oh, honey, that's nothing." That night, I had to sit next to a woman at the restaurant who was wearing a really strong perfume, and it must have rubbed off on me. And that text message was from my friend Sarah. She's always sending me those silly emojis. "You know how she is," she explained, her tone light and casual. I wanted to accept her explanations, but something in the back of my mind was still skeptical. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, not knowing whether to trust her completely or to keep digging for answers. As the evening wore on, we tried to act normal, but there was an underlying tension in the air. We watched a movie together, but I couldn't focus on the screen. My mind was constantly replaying our conversation and all the possible scenarios. Before going to bed, she gave me a long, affectionate kiss and whispered, "Don't worry so much, love. Everything will be okay." But as I lay in bed next to her, my eyes wide open in the darkness, I knew that the doubt and the anxiety were not going to go away so easily. The next few days until my doctor's appointment seemed like they were going to be an eternity, and I had no idea how I was going to get through them. The next few days felt like an endless torture. Every moment with my wife was filled with an unspoken tension. I tried to carry on with my work as an IT consultant, but my mind was constantly preoccupied with the impending doctor's appointment and the growing doubts about my wife's pregnancy. During the day, while she was at work, I found myself rummaging through old medical records, searching online for any case similar to mine where a man with azoospermia had managed to impregnate his partner. But every article and medical forum I visited only seemed to confirm that, without the surgery, the chances were next to zero. One evening, as I was casually scrolling through our shared photo album on the cloud, I stumbled upon a series of pictures from a work event she had attended a few months ago. There was one photo in particular that caught my attention. In it, she was standing next to a man I didn't recognize. They were both laughing, and there seemed to be an odd familiarity in their stance. I zoomed in on the photo, studying their expressions intently. My heart started pounding faster as I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this picture than just a friendly work-related moment. I decided to do a bit of sleuthing. I knew it might be a long shot, but I searched through her work contacts list on our home computer. After some digging, I found the name of the man in the photo. He was a colleague from a different department in her company. I hesitated for a moment, my hands hovering over the keyboard, before I decided to look him up on social media. His profile was public, and as I scrolled through his posts, I noticed that he had been posting quite a lot about his recent fitness achievements. One of his pictures showed him a local gym, and in the background, I could see a familiar water bottle. It was the same one my wife always took to the gym. My mind started racing. Was it just a coincidence, or were they working out together? I was so absorbed in my discovery that I didn't hear my wife come home. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I jumped in my seat. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sounding a bit sharp. I quickly closed the browser window, my face turning red. "Oh, just looking up some work-related stuff," I stammered, hoping she wouldn't notice my nervousness. She looked at me suspiciously for a moment, but then shrugged it off. "Well, I'm home early today. Thought we could go out for dinner or something," she said, trying to sound cheerful. I forced a smile and agreed, but my mind was still on the man in the photo and the water bottle. At the restaurant, I was barely able to eat. I kept stealing glances at my wife, trying to read her expressions. She seemed to be in a good mood, chatting animatedly about some new ideas she had for her marketing campaign. But every now and then, I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something that made me even more uneasy. After dinner, when we got home, she went straight to the bathroom to take a shower. I sat on the couch, my mind racing with all the new information I had discovered. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. I decided that as soon as she came out of the shower, I would confront her about the man in the photo and the water bottle. When she finally emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her hair still wet, I took a deep breath and started. I need to talk to you about something. I found a photo of you with a guy from your work, and I saw his social media. There was a water bottle in the background that looked just like yours," I said, my voice trembling slightly. She looked at me in shock, her eyes widening. "What? Are you serious? You've been spying on me?" she exclaimed, her voice rising in anger. I tried to explain that I was just trying to find some answers, that I was so confused and worried about the pregnancy. But she seemed to be too angry to listen. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. I was left alone in the living room, feeling even more lost and confused than before. The doctor's appointment was just a day away, and now, our relationship seemed to be on the verge of breaking down. The night after our explosive argument, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. The image of my wife's shocked and angry face kept replaying in my mind. I knew I had crossed a line by snooping, but the overwhelming doubt about the pregnancy had clouded my judgment. In the morning, I woke up to an empty bed. My wife had already left for work without a word. I reached for my phone, hoping to find a message from her, but there was nothing. I felt a pang of guilt and regret. I should have handled the situation better. Despite the emotional turmoil, I couldn't skip my doctor's appointment. As I sat in the waiting room, my leg bounced nervously. Every passing minute felt like an eternity. Finally, my name was called, and I was led into the doctor's office. The doctor, a middle-aged man with a kind face, looked through my file. "So, you're here to discuss the possibility of fathering a child despite your azoospermia diagnosis?" he asked. I nodded, my throat dry. He explained that while it was extremely rare, there were some cases where spontaneous remission of the blockage could occur. However, in my case, based on the severity of the initial diagnosis, the odds were minuscule. He suggested a series of additional tests, but it would take time for the results to come back. Feeling more confused than ever, I left the doctor's office. On my way home, I decided to stop by my wife's workplace. I needed to talk to her, to apologize, and to try to salvage our relationship. When I arrived at her office building, I asked the receptionist to call her down. She looked at me a bit strangely, but obliged. After a few minutes, my wife emerged from the elevator. Her eyes were red, and she looked tired. We found a quiet corner in the lobby. I took a deep breath and started speaking. "I'm so sorry. I should never have invaded your privacy. I was just so scared and confused about the pregnancy. I love you, and I don't want this to ruin us," I said, my voice filled with emotion. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. I'm hurt that you didn't trust me, but I also understand that this situation is crazy for you. I've been thinking, and I want to be completely transparent with you," she said. She then confessed that the man in the photo was a new colleague. They had been assigned to work on a project together, and they had gone to the gym a few times during their lunch breaks to relieve stress. She said there was nothing romantic between them, and she was sorry if her actions had made me uncomfortable. As for the different smell that night, it was indeed because of the woman sitting next to her at the restaurant, just as she had said, and the text message was from her friend Sarah, who loved using emojis. I listened intently, a sense of relief washing over me. But there was still one big question remaining: the pregnancy. Just as I was about to ask her again, her phone rang. It was her doctor's office. They had some urgent results regarding her pregnancy and wanted her to come in immediately. We looked at each other, a mix of fear and anticipation in our eyes. Without a word, we left the building and headed to the doctor's office together. This time, we were both hoping for some clear answers. The future of our relationship and the new life growing inside her seemed to hang in the balance. The drive to the doctor's office was filled with an eerie silence. The air in the car seemed thick, and every passing second felt heavier than the last. We stole glances at each other, but neither of us dared to voice the thoughts that were surely racing through our minds. When we arrived at the doctor's office, we were immediately ushered into an examination room. The doctor, a young woman with a serious expression, entered the room shortly after. She held a folder in her hands, and I could see from the way she carried herself that the news might not be what we hoped for. "First of all, I want to apologize for the confusion," the doctor began. "There was a mix-up in the lab. The pregnancy tests that were initially run on you were from another patient with a similar name. Your actual test results show that you're not pregnant." My wife and I stared at her in disbelief. For a moment, neither of us could speak. It was as if the world around us had come to a standstill. Then, a flood of emotions washed over me: relief, guilt, and a strange sense of sadness all at once. My wife let out a small sob. "I can't believe this. All this time, all the stress and the arguments. It was all for nothing," she said, her voice breaking. I reached out and took her hand in mine. "I'm so sorry, honey. I should have trusted you from the start. I let my past and my insecurities get the best of me," I said, my eyes welling up with tears. The doctor gave us a moment to compose ourselves. "I understand that this is a lot to take in, but I'm glad we could clear up this misunderstanding. And remember, communication is key in any relationship. If you have any questions or concerns in the future, don't hesitate to talk to each other," she said, offering us a kind smile. On the way home, we talked about everything that had happened. We shared our fears, our insecurities, and our hopes for the future. I told her about my past experience of being cheated on and how it had haunted me. She listened attentively, squeezing my hand from time to time to show her support. She, in turn, opened up about the stress she had been under at work and how she had been looking forward to having a baby to bring some joy into our lives. We both realized that we had been so caught up in our own worlds that we had forgotten to communicate effectively. When we got home, we sat on the couch, still holding hands. "Let's start over," I said. "Let's put all this behind us and focus on building a stronger relationship. We can still have a family in the future, but for now, let's just focus on us." She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'd like that. Let's make a promise to always be honest with each other, no matter what," she said. We sealed our promise with a kiss that was filled with hope and a new, found sense of trust. As we sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, I knew that this experience, though painful, had taught us a valuable lesson. Our relationship was stronger than ever, and we were ready to face whatever the future held together.
If this story touched you, show your support by liking and subscribing. Your encouragement helps us keep sharing memorable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.